You don't have to be afraid to make bread. People have been doing it for 15,000 years, and that was long before cookbooks came out. I'm going to give you 5 tips today that will help you make better bread every time, no matter what recipe you're using. So tip number 1, after you've mixed all your ingredients and before you start kneading your dough, cover the bowl and let that dough rest anywhere from 30 minutes to as much as 2 days in the refrigerator. This is especially important if you're making a rich bread, something like a brioche or an egg bread or a sweet dough. You're going to want to let that rest in the refrigerator for as long as you can. 2 days is great. What's happening is it's going to hydrate your flour, and it's going to let those 2 different proteins that combine to make gluten, it's going to give them a chance to bind. So let the chemistry of the bread work for you and let that dough rest before you ever start kneading it. Tip number 2, knead long enough. Whatever the recipe says, you just keep kneading that bread until you've got a smooth dough that's not sticky. It shouldn't have raggedy edges coming down around the sides. It should be very stretchy, very bouncy. Knead long enough. It doesn't matter if you do a stretch and fold, or if you like to do the quarter fold and turn like I do, or even if you use a machine. Whatever the recipe says, if you're kneading by hand, you probably want to double it and make sure that you knead your dough long enough. Tip number 3 is, this one comes to me from my mom, who learned it from her dad, who was a baker in the old country, and it's frequently omitted in modern recipes, and that is rounding. Where right now most recipes will have you knead, rise, and then shape your dough, what you want to do is knead, rise, round, rise, and shape. So your bread dough has been rising, it's all fluffed up and about double in volume. What you're going to do is press out all the air, deflate the dough. You're going to knead it for 5 to 8 turns or so, like that. And what you're doing is moving the yeast to new pastures. You'll get a more flavorful bread and a higher rise if you give the yeast a chance to multiply and feed well. So the yeast is all moved to new places. Now you're going to turn that back on a nice tidy round and put it back in your rising bowl it'll probably take about half as long as the previous rise did. And then when it's all ready, then you deflate it and you shape your bread as the recipe directs. So rise, round, rise. The 4th tip, if you can manage it, let your final rise, the shaped loaf, let that rise in the refrigerator. So it might be overnight or it might be all day, depending on your schedule, and then bake it from cold. So you let it rise in the refrigerator, you score it when you get it out, and bake it according to directions. And I think you're going to like what you see. Last tip, this one's the secret. Don't tell anybody that you're in bread making competition with, but if you want to improve the texture and the resiliency of your bread and give yourself a little insurance policy on making really good bread every time, add a mashed potato to your dough. It doesn't even matter if you're making something like yeast-raised donuts. Add a mashed potato to the dough. You may have to add a little more flour, of course, and so you're going to wind up with a little higher volume of bread potentially, but that's okay. I don't know why it works, but a little potato in your dough just gives you a much better bread. And those are my 5 tips on how to make better bread.